You're a handsome boy. Hey guys. So I was just about to give... Oh, are you nervous of the fence? You can hear the fence clicking. It's making him jump. I was just about to give Blue's feet a wash because I think they're going to need rasping. So I kind of want to do that today if I can. I want to rasp them, and I actually want to put some Stockham tar on the bottom of them. And to do that, to do both of those things, I need clean, dry feet. And currently they're not clean or dry. They are very muddy. Well, they're not very muddy. They're just a bit yucky, really. It's mostly bedding that sticks to his feet. We've got like surface mush on our yard, but not like deep mud or anything. But I just want to get all of that off so that I can actually see his feet and do what I want to do properly. Anyway, I figured now might be a good time to go ahead and do my little foot video that I mentioned recently. So for anybody who's been following our channel for very long, you probably have heard me grumble and groan about Blue and his feet. He needs a brush. He has had the worst feet problems since we've known him. It took us a few years to kind of suss out what was going on, but it actually turns out he has something called hoof wall separation. And I was a bit confused by that when our farrier first mentioned it to us. I was like, I thought that was something that Connemara's got. And generally speaking, it is something that is very common in Connemara ponies. However, other horses can get it, obviously, because he's got it. Luckily, he hasn't got it that badly. So some horses can get hoof wall separation and there's literally nothing you can do. Their feet just fall apart and sadly, sometimes they end up being put down. But you were luckier than that, weren't you? Yeah, yours aren't too bad. So for anyone who doesn't know, hoof wall separation. Hey, you're not being a very good model today, are you? Are you not in the mood for this? You still got to have your feet washed, even if you don't want to stand here and look pretty while I'm talking to people. So, yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, hoof wall separation is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's where the hoof wall, like the outer horn layer of the hoof, just kind of comes away from the rest of the foot. And it just, like, you kind of get like big chunks of hoof coming off. You usually get like big curls and big splits and cracks going up, and you get big chunks of hoof that just kind of rip off. I did do a video a few years ago. This was back when he had shoes on, and a huge chunk of foot came off with his shoe. It was ridiculous. If I can find the picture of it, I will put it in. If not, I'll try and remember to link that video, because I did show the state of his feet back then, and it might be quite interesting. For anybody who's going through something similar to what we went through with him, it might be interesting to kind of like cross-reference and look back to how his feet were doing a few years ago compared to now. Anyway, yeah, so in a nutshell, hoof wall separation, feet fall apart repetitively, and it's very, very difficult to keep shoes on them. So for us, this has been, like I said, an ongoing problem since we got Blue. He had really bad feet when we got him. I don't think they'd ever really been trimmed properly, if at all, actually, looking at the state of them. So he kind of had splats rather than hooves. They were like big diamond-shaped, flat, splatted things. And it took a long time to get him to actually have like a hoof shape again. And we kind of thought that his problem was just that he'd never had proper foot care before. But we kind of realised over the years of getting his feet back into a proper shape that there was more going on than that. Like I said, we kept getting like breakages. He could never keep shoes on. So we went down the line of getting him shod quite early. Because he had such bad feet, we kind of went along with the assumption that a lot of people do, which is let's put some shoes on his feet, which are going to give him a bit of protection to allow his feet to grow out. Turns out that was a really, really big mistake, really, really big mistake. He couldn't keep shoes on. I mean, sometimes they would stay on, but they would come off for no apparent reason. Like, we'd just be trotting up the road and a shoe would fly off, usually with a very large chunk of hoof attached to it, sadly. And that was very problematic because he was losing on a regular basis very large chunks of hoof. And of course, if you lose too much hoof, you're going to end up with a very sore or a lame horse. You don't really want that to be happening on a regular basis. So we struggled along with shoes for a few years. it just wasn't working out. I think the final straw was the time. Hey, don't smash your feet on the floor. No, don't do that. Don't break your feet. Yeah, he does that, which doesn't help as well. He slams them on the floor and then they kind of they explode. Silly boy, do you want some hay? Let's get you some hay. So yeah, we gave up with shoes eventually. The final straw was when he took a humongous chunk of hoof off. It was probably about that long, about that deep. It was really interesting because the shoe came off and all of the nails were like still in place, but the hoof had failed. So like the nails hadn't come off or anything like that. The hoof that the nails were attached to had just detached from the rest of his foot and come off. Hence the shoe came off. It was really, really bad, really, really eye-opening. And there's probably going to be some people out there that are going to jump on that and be like, well, you shouldn't be putting metal shoes and nailing them on horses' feet. It's archaic and it's old-fashioned and we don't need to do it anymore. I kind of get what you're saying. Like, I have read into a lot of forums, you know, people debating metal horseshoes. I don't know, I have mixed feelings on it personally. Like, on the one hand, I think it is very archaic to be nailing a metal shoe onto a horse's foot. But on the other hand, there are benefits to it. And I think, I don't know, I try to stay open-minded. Like, I try to base my opinion on the information that I have available to me at the time. And I think there is a lot of misinformation about it. So I saw a post recently, I think it was a YouTube post. It was like one of these natural horsemanship pages. And they'd shared like this big, like epic rant of a post about how nailing a shoe onto a horse's foot causes them excruciating pain because there's all these nerve endings where the nails go, and they had all these diagrams and like images of the cardiovascular system within the foot and all the veins and all the nerves and all of that. And I was reading through it and I was thinking, damn, they're making a really compelling case here. And then I kind of stopped from it and I thought, hang on a minute, that's absolute nonsense, because if your farrier is shoeing your horse properly, the nail goes into the part of the foot that has no nerves, and so it doesn't hurt them. I mean, let's face it, like, just kind of, like, I know we're going a little bit off topic here, but if you think about it, right, if you were to nail a shoe into a part of a horse's foot that has nerves and blood vessels, do you not think that one, you would get blood squirting out of it, and two, the horse would go absolutely nuts because you just hurt it and then be lame? Like, if the information in the post, if the information in that post that these people had shared was in any way truthful, then every horse on the face of the planet that's ever had a metal traditional shoe nailed onto his foot would be walking around bleeding and lame, and that's just not the case. And like I said, while they kind of made a compelling and luring argument on the case, the information that they were using to make that argument was just complete nonsense. It was completely false, and I can't believe I nearly got sucked in by it. But again, I do have mixed feelings on the subject. But yeah, that's my kind of 2 pence worth on the whole horseshoe thing. Mixed feelings, let's leave it at that before anybody shouts at me and starts ranting and having arguments in the comment section. Yeah, after several years of shoes flying off left, right and centre and him ripping his feet apart, we decided to go barefoot. We decided to stop putting shoes on him. We weren't really sure how it was going to go, because the reason we put shoes on him in the first place was because his feet kept failing and falling apart. So it was kind of like, what do we do here? But the shoes clearly weren't working, so they went. We went barefoot. I can't remember, I think by this point we were feeding him supplementary biotin as well. So biotin is, I think it's vitamin B7. I will double check that. If that's wrong, I will put a message up to correct myself, but I'm pretty sure it's vitamin B7. It basically helps the horses grow hoof, hair, and it helps their skin health, basically. It's kind of like one of those building block vitamins, really, really essential. And so he was on biotin for several years, which we did see a slight improvement in his hoof quality, but not a massive one. So we had him on the biotin. We eventually took the shoes off. I ended up learning how to rasp his feet at that point. So we actually have a rasp here. I I don't actually have to do it that often anymore, but in the early days, I was rasping his feet myself, probably once a week. Our farrier basically advised us to not allow any of these little splits and curls of hoof to get out of control. If you nip them in the bud nice and early and keep the feet smooth and tidy, then they don't get a chance to split and escalate and damage the foot further. So that was the advice we were given. We were given a rasp. We were told to just keep on top of that, which I did. Rasping a horse's feet, by the way, not as easy as farriers make it look. Yeah, have respect for your farriers, people. The job they do is not easy in the slightest. But luckily, Mr. Itchy Pants here is an absolute saint for having his feet done. He's been so patient with me while I learned how to do that. And he is still an absolute saint to have his feet done. He's problematic in other areas of his personality, but with stuff like that, he does not put a foot wrong, do you, darling? You're very good having your feet done. We had to get a hay top up. Somebody was getting cranky again. So I'm trying to think what else we were doing. So as well as giving him the supplemental biotin, we were also like very religiously applying like hoof grease. Hoof oil, not so much. I find that oil doesn't really do a great deal, but we were using initially, I think it was the Effol. I don't know if that's how you say it. E-F-F-O-L. I think it's like a German brand, possibly. Don't quote me on that. And we also used the Kevin Bacon one a lot. That was a really good one. Like the really heavy fat-based, like grease-based, fat-based ones, not the oil-based ones. And we used to put that on his feet every day. Like we used to literally slather it on to try and keep some of the moisture in his feet, because his feet were drying out quite a lot as well. And that, again, that did help. Eventually, I actually started making my own hoof grease. I make it with lard, bay leaf, and coconut oil. I have actually made a video sharing how I make that. Again, if I remember, I will link that in case anybody is interested. But that actually worked out really, really good. It was as good as the Kevin Bacon stuff at a fraction of the price, like an absolute fraction of the price. So I still use that on his feet now. We don't tend to buy hoof grease now. I use the homemade stuff on him. And that actually works really, really well. Again, it just helps to keep the moisture in the feet, which helps to minimize the cracks. It won't prevent them, but I found it does minimize the amount of cracking and splitting that you get in the feet. All of that being said, we haven't had to use it that much this summer. But this year has been a very damp year, so I don't know, the weather could be playing into that. And actually, that is worth mentioning. The weather does massively play into how the horse's feet seem to respond to this problem of hoof wall separation. So you kind of want like nice average weather, but if you get extremely hot, dry weather, I will find that his feet go brittle and dry and they start splitting, and that's when we have to really start whacking the hoof grease on him. And equally, if it's really, really wet and his feet don't get a chance to dry out properly, they also start splitting and kind of curling at the edges again. I'm not quite sure why. And I've also noticed that now I don't know if this is the case for all horses with hoof wall separation, but I noticed that he in particular, he is susceptible to fungal infections in his feet. Now, again, I don't know if that's related to the whole hoof wall separation thing. That could just be a him problem. He is a very fungusy horse, unfortunately. You're fungusy, aren't you? You get all sorts of fungal infections all the time. Yeah. So that could just be him, but that is something we have to watch out for as well. I'm going to get mugged by a dog now. I've squatted down here. So, yes. Yeah, fungal infections. So we were using Stockham tar as well. If he has ever had like a phase of recurring fungal problems or his feet just looking really, really poor quality, I will still sometimes put Stockham tar on like the inside and the outside. And that's actually something I'm planning on doing today. Once I've washed his feet and rasped them later on when they're dry, I am going to put some Stockham tar on him. Just because I want to like preemptively prevent any possible fungal issues. So once you get fungal issues in the feet, I feel like it does escalate the hoof wall separation thing. But again, I don't actually know if the two things generally go hand in hand. Like if anybody else has any experience with this problem and if they've noticed the same thing, I would appreciate it if you'd let me know, because it'd be interesting to know if the two are linked. But regardless of whether or not they are linked, I know in his case, having a fungal infection does escalate the separation of the hoof wall and therefore the hoof falling apart. So we try and keep on top of that as well. Right, clean footsies. So we can have a little look now. Now actually, they're not looking great at the moment. So they're still a little bit mucky to be fair, but that's clean enough for what I need. So you can see down here, see all this kind of like curling and splitting that's going on? And it's the same over here as well. All this is, so all these little chunks that are coming off. Hey, don't knee me in the face, cheeky. So this is basically what happens to his feet because of this hoof wall separation disease that he has. Oh, that one's quite stuck on there. I'm going to have to tidy it off though. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, funny boy. Look, you got water all over Gary now. But yeah, so this is what happens to his feet. This is very minor compared to what used to happen. So again, you can see we've got it going on the backs as well. So he's had a chunk come off there. Do you see that sharp edge where a bit of hoof is just broken off? And the same is happening on this foot. See, we've got these curls and splits here. So you can see the bottom of his foot there. Actually, that's quite a good view of what happens on the side there. You can see where the hoof is separating, where the hoof wall is coming away. So it's actually quite interesting to look at it from that angle to give you guys an idea of what's going on under there. And you can see the curls there as well. Hey guys, so I was editing this video last night and I realised that I'd lost a big chunk of footage, which was slightly annoying. Don't quite know what went wrong there. Maybe I just didn't press the on button. I have done that in the past where I think I'm recording stuff, but I haven't even turned the camera on. It's really bad. But anyway, big chunk of footage went missing, so I just thought I would fill you guys in. It's so noisy today. Sorry about the noise in the road. I'll do my best to edit it out. I thought I would just fill you guys in on the last part of the epic blue foot story, which kind of brings us up to this year. So early this year, we decided to try a different supplement for Blue's feet. We decided to put him on this stuff. Oh, it's a really awkward heavy bag. So it's called Farriers Formula. So we ummed and ahed about whether or not to try this. It did come quite highly recommended. The reviews on it were really good, which is always a big tick in my box. If it's got bad reviews, then I'm definitely not going to buy it. But this always has good reviews from what we've seen. So Mum had actually used this on a horse at Hunt Yard she was working at a while ago, and she reckoned that it was really, really good. So he had like foot problems as well. His feet used to fall apart. He used to really struggle keeping shoes. I don't know if the problems he had were exactly the same as Blue's, but this stuff seems to help massively. Like, it really improved the quality of his feet. And that's actually what we've seen in Blue as well. I'm going to stand under here because it's slightly less windy and slightly warmer. So we put Blue on the Farriers Formula. I'm sure it was this year. So my perception of time is really bad, but I'm pretty sure we put him on it at the beginning of this year. And we took him off the biotin. We'd kind of got to a point where his feet just weren't doing great again. We were like, right, let's just try something else. We were skeptical about trying it because it's really expensive. So that little bag, this little dinky bag here, that costs about £50, and that's about a month's supply. So it's not cheap stuff, definitely not cheap stuff. But we got to a point where we're like, right, let's just try it. But as it turns out, it was really, really good. It has made a massive, massive difference to the quality of his hoof. So he still gets splits, he still gets curls, he still gets break off, etc., etc. I mean, he's probably always going to get that because he's just genetically faulty on that front, unfortunately for him. But we have seen a massive improvement in the quality of his hoof. So yeah, the quality of his hoof improved massively over the course of this summer. Now, obviously, we haven't fed it to him through a winter yet, so I don't know what his feet are going to do over the winter. Definitely seeing more splits and cracks now that the ground is wet than we've had all summer. Like, his feet have been pretty much perfect all summer. I've only really had to tidy them up and rasp them for the sake of shows, just to make his feet, you know, more pretty and presentable. But from a functionality point of view, they've been really good and strong. So it'd be interesting to see how he copes through the winter, but so far I'm really impressed with this stuff. Like, the quality of his hoof wall has changed massively, really, really big difference there. He gets much less break off, and when he does get break off, it's not as excessive as it used to be. And the other thing I noticed was the quality of the sole of his feet has changed as well. So historically, like if you picked Blue's feet out and you scrape hoof pick along the bottom of his foot, you'd get like all this white, soft, crumbly stuff. Like his feet would just crumble away basically. But now the bottoms of his feet are like hard, like they should be, like it's proper hard hoof sole, which is really, really, really big improvement for him. I was really impressed by that. I think I was more impressed by that than I was about anything else. So despite the fact that it's very expensive, I think that stuff is definitely worth it. If anybody has issues with their horse's feet, like crumbling, breaking, struggling to keep shoes on, like I would recommend you try Farriers Formula. This isn't a sponsorship thing, by the way. I have nothing to do with this company. I'm just sharing a product that we have found to be massively helpful, and definitely ticks the box of being massively helpful. It is expensive, but I think from our experience anyway, it's definitely proved to be worth it. Baloo, you're gonna say hello, everyone. Hey, Baloo. Oh, you're all rugged at this time of year, aren't you? You ain't no show pony at the moment, that's for sure, bud. He's rubbed a big chunk of his mane off as well. Actually, that's another interesting thing with the Farriers Formula. Because of what's in it, so it's full of like, it's got the biotin in it, it's got loads of amino acids, it's got zinc in it, there's a couple of other things I can't remember off the top of my head. So it also promotes the health of his skin as well, and I think that's helped with his sweet itch, which has been really, really interesting. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Blue's feet. They are the best now that they have ever been. They're still not perfect. I still have to tidy them up. We still have to be careful what we do with him and what conditions we keep his feet in. Obviously, at this time of year it's difficult because there's wet outside everywhere. He can't get away from it. But he has a dry stable that he spends half the day in, so his feet do get to dry out and air properly. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead with the stock and tar regime for the winter, I think, just to prevent any fungal issues from coming up. But yeah, I feel like we're in a good place with him now. We can actually ride him regularly. Like, I ride him properly. He does really, really well barefoot, which I was very nervous about when we first took him barefoot. I thought his feet would just explode and he'd be really sore. But he actually goes better barefoot than he ever did with shoes. I feel like he's more comfortable without shoes on. Make of that what you will, I don't know. I mean, Woody, for example, he doesn't care if he's got shoes on or not. You cannot tell a difference in him whatsoever. Nelly really struggles without shoes. She gets footsore very easily. Now, arguably, like, you could harden her feet off with, like, progressively increasing work and things like that, but we have tried that before. We had her back feet bare this summer and she just wore her feet down massively. She didn't cope very well with it. So I think it varies from horse to horse, but he does really, really good barefoot, luckily, because you can't keep shoes on. He's very lucky. So yeah, that's kind of the story of Blue's feet, really. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that with everyone, purely on the basis that there might be like information in there that could prove helpful to other people who have had similar issues. I'm not saying that what we've done is the best way to fix the problems that Blue's feet have had. I'm just sort of telling you guys the journey that we've been on and the things we've tried and what we've found that works for us. So if anybody else has had issues with like either hoof wall separation or just crappy feet in general, if you've got any tips or advice, I'd be really grateful if you'd share them with us. I'm always on the lookout for better ways of doing things. So any information on this kind of thing would be much appreciated. Like any information on any horsey stuff would be much appreciated, actually, because like I said, I like learning better ways of doing things, and there's always something new to learn. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. I have to muck up my stables and go to work very soon. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon.